Gents, guys, this is the conclusion. The Quad takes on the PLA. But portrayals of China's overwhelming force are misleading, at least if you are in Washington rather than New Delhi, which is genuinely outmatched. Even using outside estimates of China's military budget, its spending roughly 200 billion is less than 1/4 of the annual US defense budget of around 934 billion. Even as the United States takes Beijing increasingly aggressive stance seriously, that reality should not be forgotten. He says, narrow field anti-access, area denial or missile and electronic technology designed to raise the cost of military intervention anywhere close to China itself. This is what the US is concerned about. But there is also a tendency to overestimate the PLA because outsiders can't see inside. Although China has updated its military technology, severe weaknesses likely remain, from corruption to poor systems maintenance. PLA propaganda and secrecy make it hard for these problems to be examined or discussed within China itself, and hard for outsiders to obtain the information, unlike in the United States or Taiwan, or India for the matter of fact. And that, folks, is something that our analysts should think about instead of parroting the basic commentary which I am assuming is being thrown out by China to show that they are like powerful and power projection through lies, right? Ladakh didn't work out for China. It will now drive a wedge between Quad partners. That's what's not important. Neither did they do that, nor did Ladakh work out for China. That's the important part. Meanwhile, the growing gap in national power, the long-term border confrontation and other related factors might well push India's strategists to a certain revision of the policy of strategic autonomy and make the US the main security donor, as in the case of Australia and Japan. And that's exactly where we are headed. Whether we like to say it or not, we might as well acknowledge it. In theory, such dynamics may push Beijing to institutionalize the Himalayan Quad project involving China, Nepal, Pakistan and Afghanistan as a counterweight to the Quad. Now that's kind of an oxymoron. These countries probably don't even have a GDP which is equivalent to Maharashtra. Forget acting as a Quad, folks, an anti-Quad. Are they for real? I mean, this guy's obviously a guy from Belarus. Okay. Indian analysts use a figure of speech noting that the APR becomes the jackpot in the planet's geostrategic sweepstakes and the center stage on which the new edition of the great game is being enacted. Also, it is difficult to argue that the region belongs to the geopolitical space where the celestial empire China challenges both the United States and the Asian status quo in an effort to pursue the Chinese dream and gain a status of a world power. Great world power. Wow. Thus, the seemingly inevitable and obvious trend of shifting the center of the world's geopolitics and geoeconomics to APR suggests that the coming Asian century will be eventful and hardly anybody can remain unaffected. This specifically refers to those enthusiasts who will be able to timely and accurately see its hidden potential and benefits from the point of view of national interest and formulate the outlines of their own unique strategy for Asian maneuvers. This is a Yuri M. Yarmolinsky is an analyst with the Belarus Institute for Strategic Research. But Belarus has been in the news for all the wrong reasons. And one of them is this: state terrorism, piracy, global outrage over Belarus flight diversion. Right? You remember that? Okay. Well, let's end with this. Pranab Dhal Samta. Plug into the free world. Plug into the free world. Okay. The political significance of Narendra S. Modi's US visit can be peeled, sliced and diced in many which ways, but that it should not detract us from the core purpose of his visit, to reposition India for a post-COVID world order, and this was done rather effectively on three stumps: democracy, technology and trust. Okay. China's rise and its challenge to global norms has necessitated a realignment among democracies, creating a geopolitical space to which Modi has now staked India's claim, and done it well. Importantly, this pitch was made in the backdrop of challenges within the US's own democratic fabric. That's actually gave us a window, right? Both within the US, where Indian migrants and their democratic credentials are a standout feature, a point Modi is believed to have made to Biden, and in the Indo-Pacific, the US's priority geopolitical arena, India's democratic identity has now acquired far greater political and strategic relevance for Washington. It surely has. In this context, the Quad's collective articulation on agreed set of principles to govern the design, development, transfer and use of technology is extremely significant. For the first time, it has made a foray into partnering with Western powers to set technology standards for the future. To develop new technologies is a scientific enterprise, but to frame, important part, underline, but to frame the terms of it across is a political task. And the latter is a complicated function of combining tech and quality standards with non-economic parameters like democratic values and human rights. China ain't getting there, right? The Quad is the first forum to embrace the idea of resetting terms of tech engagement to explore and build alternative trusted supply chains, essentially excluding China and its entities. At the Quad Summit, it was India that chaired the session on emerging and critical technologies. Modi initiated the discussion and reportedly pushed the idea of clean apps developed and designed with trusted sources of technology. The biggest challenge for India is to beat China's counter-narrative that democracies by structure and nature cannot be efficient. But Modi said democracy works and he's going to walk the talk. He has to. In many ways, Modi's repositioning of India commits GOI to an ambitious policy agenda and higher political, economic and technological benchmarking of the kind necessary for being a key stakeholder in holding up the foreseeable new order. We are, folks, possibly part of the new order. Our internal democratic crisis is a matter of another debate. But as far as foreign policy goes, we are currently singing a good tune. Jai Hind. So as I said, folks, the biggest advantage India has is its navy, its geographic advantage of where it is, and it definitely has an edge currently over the PLAN and PLAA. Absolutely. And India needs to use this. And this is India's biggest advantage. So what is Darshana M. Barua right? India's maritime moment has arrived. India's decision to hold an open debate on maritime security during its presidency at the UNSC for month of August 2021 was significant and historic in many ways. Today, maritime security has become a critical pillar of India's foreign policy engagements, institutionalizing a foreign policy shift adopted by the government faced with dramatic developments in its immediate neighborhood and strategic space. The shift in Delhi's maritime reckoning underlines both the importance of maritime security in India's foreign policy engagements as well as the potential of the domain in promoting Delhi's foreign policy ambitions. While historically the land border in the north has occupied India's security resources and priorities, Delhi's maritime geography and the nature of the domain have allowed the Indian Navy to deliver far above the meager defense budget that it receives. Despite the capital and resource constraints, while being ignored by the political class, the Indian Navy was able to establish itself as a key player and an important maritime partner for much of the Indian Ocean littorals and islands. Further, Delhi's logistics facilities agreements with France, US, Australia and Japan, along others, provide the Indian Navy access to facilities and sustaining its presence across the Indo-Pacific and really high-tech facilities. China is building from scratch in pauper countries like Pakistan, Sri Lanka and Djibouti. They're building from scratch and without much knowledge. That's what I'm saying. Given the strategic location of India's maritime partners, such agreements provide the Indian Navy access to critical locations such as Guam, La Reunion and Okinawa. These agreements also hold future possibilities for access to and missions from islands such as Diego Garcia and Cocos Keeling, which along with its own Andaman and Nicobar Islands stands to provide critical geographical advantage to Delhi's anti-submarine warfare and maritime domain awareness missions. And the icing on the cake will be if Andamans and Nicobar can be turned into a Quad headquarters. As India takes its Indo-Pacific engagement forward, Delhi must continue to build on its maritime moment, leveraging opportunities and partnerships in addressing its concerns and challenges.